Everyone is watching China. Everyone is watching Russia. Almost no one is watching this, because the biggest shift in global power right now isn't happening through war, sanctions, or elections. It's happening quietly. In boardrooms, energy contracts, infrastructure projects, and long-term agreements that rarely make headlines. By 2026, one country could hold more leverage over the West than China ever did. And it's a country the West still calls an ally. Saudi Arabia isn't threatening the West. That's the mistake people make. It's doing something far more strategic. While Western governments debate culture wars, stall on infrastructure, and wrestle with internal political paralysis, Saudi Arabia is building. Not just buildings, systems, entire frameworks designed for the next phase of global power. And here's the uncomfortable part. Western leaders aren't resisting the shift. They're participating in it. Through energy deals, financial integration, technology partnerships, and diplomatic coordination, influence isn't being seized. It's being transferred, gradually, legally, and with mutual signatures. This isn't about tanks crossing borders. It's about contracts being signed. When people hear Saudi power, they think oil. That's outdated thinking. Oil was leverage in the 20th century. In the 21st century, oil is the entry point, not the end game. Energy still matters, but control over systems matters more, and Saudi Arabia understands something. Western governments hesitate to say out loud, the future isn't controlled by raw resources alone. It's controlled by infrastructure, financial alignment, and strategic optionality. So instead of confronting the West, Saudi Arabia positioned itself inside the systems the West depends on: finance, energy markets, sovereign investment, supply chains, technology partnerships, sports, media, and cultural capital. Not as a rival, as a partner. That's what makes this shift hard to recognize. It doesn't look like an attack, it looks like cooperation. But cooperation becomes leverage when one side is building long-term architecture while the other focuses on short-term stability. Look at what Saudi Arabia is constructing right now. Massive urban developments designed around automation and AI integration. Financial hubs structured to operate beyond traditional dollar-only systems. Energy investments that assume the global transition will take decades, not years, ensuring long-term relevance even in a renewable-heavy world. This isn't ideological, it's structural. Saudi Arabia is building options, and optionality is power. When a country can pivot between East and West, trade in multiple currencies, invest globally through sovereign wealth funds, and maintain security partnerships while expanding economic independence, it gains flexibility others don't have. The West, by contrast, is increasingly constrained, politically fragmented, economically polarized, and institutionally slow-moving. But here's where the story shifts. Nothing Saudi Arabia is doing is happening against Western resistance. In fact, much of it is happening with Western endorsement. Western banks finance major Saudi projects. Western consulting firms design strategic frameworks. Western legal systems structure international agreements. Western defense partnerships remain intact. Western universities collaborate. Western technology firms invest. The same institutions that warn about foreign influence are often directly involved in expanding Saudi global integration. This isn't accidental. Western elites understand the shift. From their perspective, this isn't losing power, it's repositioning within a new order. If global influence is diversifying, they would rather sit inside the emerging architecture than oppose it from the outside. And that's where the real tension lies. Because while voters in Western democracies argue over domestic policy, larger structural agreements continue moving forward. Energy coordination, defense procurement, investment alignment, trade diversification. When officials say global change is inevitable, what they often mean is that the agreements have already been signed. Saudi Arabia didn't storm the gates of Western power. It offered stability, capital, long-term planning. At a moment when many Western governments struggle to deliver those same things internally, massive sovereign wealth reserves allow Saudi Arabia to invest aggressively during downturns. Long-term national planning initiatives stretch decades into the future. Centralized decision-making enables rapid execution without years of legislative gridlock. In contrast, Western systems prioritize consensus, which increasingly results in paralysis. That difference in tempo matters. Power isn't just about size, it's about speed. Saudi Arabia can deploy capital quickly, negotiate infrastructure deals efficiently, and align strategy without prolonged internal resistance. Western governments often move slower, constrained by electoral cycles and internal division. Over time, that asymmetry compounds. And here's the key distinction. Saudi Arabia doesn't need to replace the West militarily or ideologically. It only needs to become indispensable. If Western economies depend on Saudi energy stabilization, if Western corporations depend on Saudi investment flows, if Western institutions depend on Gulf partnerships for regional influence, then leverage quietly shifts. Not dramatically, not publicly, but structurally. The phrase replace the West doesn't mean cultural domination or territorial conquest. It means influence recalibration. It means the West no longer sets terms unilaterally. It means decisions increasingly require Saudi alignment. And by 2026, many of the strategic foundations enabling that leverage will already be locked in. This isn't a story of villains and heroes. It's a story of incentives. Saudi Arabia is acting in its national interest. Western leaders are acting in what they believe is theirs. But citizens rarely see the long-term trade-offs embedded inside global cooperation. And by 2026, the architecture shaping that future may already be too entrenched to reverse easily. So the question isn't whether change is coming, it's who benefits from the transition, and who never realized it was happening. Tell me who you think will shape 2026.